Hey y'all, welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley, and today I was thinking that we could talk about emotional manipulation and other kinds of abuse tactics for those of you who are starting to see red flags around some people. I have a lot of experience with narcissists. So I thought we could just do a little bit of this. And I'm trying to see if these cards are gonna participate. Consider it like a soul sermon, right? Okay, so I was watching YouTube and a Kamala Harris ad came up last week. And she was talking about how Donald Trump, she said something about enough of the gaslighting. And I'm a person who doesn't believe in either party. I believe in self-governance. And so I was like, wow, she's gaslighting us by saying that, right? And so I want us to understand how evil people work, because I remember when I first started learning about narcissism, I got really, really scared. I was like, I can't believe, I've been this close to these people for so long, right? First of all, it makes sense as to why I had to go through things. I had to go through their responses to things, right? So when someone is emotionally manipulating you, some of the tactics that they like to use are breadcrumbing, which means just giving you a little bit, but ensuring that you always have to go back to them, right? That's one of the reasons I cut off my mother. The breadcrumbing was a little too intense. And so they can do this emotionally. Financial abuse is a way that this is done. Emotional abuse. A big thing that I've dealt with is the silent treatment. And what that does is that psychologically abuses people to think that they're not worthy, right? So like when you just ghost someone or go silent, and I'm not talking about like, someone you're talking to for a few days. I'm talking about like relationships that are very well established, regardless of if they're romantic or not, right? Like family, coworkers, the US government, we all have a relationship with them to some degree. It's abusive. Okay, now the cards want to play. It's abusive, the government we're talking about. This came out. Dirty money. And so gaslighting is when people make you go crazy by telling you you're acting crazy, essentially. So for Kamala Harris to stand up at that podium, I don't remember what she was saying about Trump gaslighting. But the way that this administration has, which she's the vice president of, has gaslit people who are pro-Palestine, right? Human rights, anti-genocide, has been extreme. Okay, the way that all of these we know, because the information's available, we know that they have all been bought and sold by AIPAC, right? And then on the other end of it, the Green Party and the Socialist Party are teaming up. That just came out yesterday. And they are, so Jill Stein and Claudia and Karina are not on every ballot, or not on every state ballot. And so they're teaming up and telling people to just vote for either or, right? As long as it's a vote against Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. I really want to put my foot up somewhere. I'm not. So I just want you to understand that, like, I was able to start seeing, I first started to see state sanctioned and, like, government abuse, right? In LA. It was really easy to see the way that people were ghosted, would try to make public comment at either the police commission or city council or city hall. The way that the public whose votes ensured people get to those positions were completely silenced, right? And I think that when we grow up in such a toxic society, right? It's really, it should be expected that those that our interpersonal relationships reflect that toxicity, right? So the next card I pulled was harmony, balance, peace, and happiness, which is the goal. But when you're working and dealing with abusers, whatever level it's at, and it can be multiple levels, there's been a large awakening, especially of women who have left toxic men in the past few years, myself included. And it's just like, men don't hold each other accountable the way that women do, first of all. And I'm not talking about all women, but when women are real, women will hold each other accountable, you know, and be like, you were in the wrong, you know? And that's not just a woman trait, that should be a human trait. It should be something that we can get to that point of wanting to be better, wanting to know when we're fucking up, right? And that's part of shadow work, you know, not staying ignorant to your own wrongdoings, not allowing your own toxicity to continue, right? That's part of growth. But again, when we live in a society, like this woman literally got up there and she's all like, we're not going back, as she's literally allowing women in Palestine to be raped. These politicians have signed their names on bombs, right? And it's just either way, it's such a nationalist issue. And that was one thing I remember learning from when we learned about World War II and the Hitler thing, was how nationalism really made way for the genocide. And it's really, really wild to see people not putting things together, right? I myself have really studied genocide for a good 20 years because I've been fascinated by the collective psychology of allowing it. And it's really hard to be in these times, right? But as we are coming up on election day here in the United States, I think it's really important to talk about emotional abuse. And that's, you know, in addition to the blatant racism that's happening, the misogyny that's happening. I saw a TikTok yesterday about a woman saying if Trump does win, or no, if Kamala wins, if Kamala wins, or when Kamala wins, whatever. Hopefully Jill Stein will win, but we'll see. The domestic violence rates are going to go way up because men have been conditioned since they were little. Women have too, since we were little, you know, oh, he's picking on you. Oh, it's because he likes you, right? It has been ingrained. I mean, that was a big thing when I was a child growing up. And, you know, I didn't have emotional support from my family the way that I needed it. I'm a Pisces, so I require a lot of emotional support. But I finally, after so much abuse, I had to get to a point of giving that to myself, right? Like, I can literally not rely on anyone to do that for me. And I hope that we all get to that point. It's important, but most of us are just trying to get through our day-to-day, right? And that's the way that capitalism works. So capitalism within itself as a system is the epitome of emotional abuse. Not having enough time to even take care of yourself, having to rely on unhealthy means to survive, right? Having to choose between a lesser of two evil, right? Constantly deserting yourself to give to a system that doesn't doesn't care about you, will replace you when you're gone, right? Why do I keep getting hair in my mouth? But I think on an interpersonal, so we talked about gaslighting, we talked about breadcrumbing, we talked about silent treatment. My dad used to do the silent treatment a lot, and it put me in fight or flight. My mother is incapable of having conversations in which she will automatically feel attacked, which has a lot to do with her childhood, but she hasn't unpacked that, and it's not my responsibility. So I'm like, I can't hold this space for you anymore, because like my childhood turned into the same shit, you know. And a lot of us who have kids now are trying to do better, right? But stonewalling. What's stonewalling? I don't remember what stonewalling is. It's probably what it sounds like. I think the big thing is like within psychological abuse, gaslighting is a really, really harmful thing. And so I just couldn't believe when you heal yourself to enough of a point, you can see the bullshit when it's happening, and that's the goal. The goal is to, first of all, get away from whatever's abusing you, right? But I mean, if you're talking about like within the larger system, I'm not saying like abandon, you know, whatever is here and just leave. Like we can all do our part to make it better, right? And also, if you have these things coming up for you, or if this is giving you some sort of feeling within your body, it's making you uncomfortable, that's probably an indication that it is something that you know to be true for you. And I would recommend just gently looking into that with curiosity. We don't judge ourselves in how we are healing. We just try to do the work, right? Gaslighting can make people go crazy though. And like, I just can't. I have a really hard time existing on this planet right now with the amount of gaslighting happening, especially coming up on this election. And it is triggering for people who have survived abuse in an interpersonal way, because it's just like we see what's happening, and like we see all the people around us being like, yeah, you know, just sheeples, buying the rhetoric, right? And then not only that, but then like ingesting it and then like throwing it back at us, right? And so it's just these cycles of abuse. But ultimately, when we exist in a society that's so fucking sick, right? This society is sick. And I'm specifically speaking to this country, the United States. This society is sick, okay? We have people who know that they're supporting genocide and are doing so willingly, and then getting mad at other people for wanting justice for innocent people. But then like the ego. Okay, so let's talk about the ego. The ego and ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism, I remember being in my undergrad, and I learned the word ethnocentrism in my communications class. And I think it may have been in an intercultural communication class, because it was a red flag to me the way that this was being taught. And I'm pretty sure the professor I had was the one that wrote the textbook. I really respected him a lot, but when I went back, he didn't want to see me because I'm pretty sure he's racist. Anyway, that was after my master's program. Anyway, he talked about ethnocentrism. And I think we were talking about Eurocentrism, ethnocentrism, I don't know. Either way, it's white supremacy rebranded for academics, essentially. That's all it is. And so that's the thing. When we exist in this white supremacy culture, you know, and then on the other hand of that, I've seen a lot of black folks talking about how, like, you know, we're still having this conversation in this country about, oh, she's a black woman, like, let's vote for her. But then a lot of people who are black are like, I don't want the face of genocide and imperialism to be a black woman, you know? And then there's the social context of also how black women are going to be targeted by white supremacists, right? Either way. Because if Donald Trump wins, then that's going to be a green flag to all these motherfuckers, right? But even through this administration, since Trump, you know, crime, hate crimes and violence, there's a hell of a lot of people ending up lynched right now in the United States. There's xenophobia, you know. All of these are symptoms of a sick society that is narcissistic, that can't take accountability for their actions. Even the fact that Joe Biden apologized to the First Nations folks and, you know, indigenous folks, that was all propaganda to get Kamala into the office, right? He was literally Genocide Joe. Like, the whole world was screaming that just a few months ago. Kamala took the ticket for office, and then, like, everyone just went back to, like, drinking Starbucks, right? Insane. So, ultimately, we all have work to do on ourselves. And I don't want this to end up being like a victim mentality, like, oh, well, I don't have to do anything. No, you fucking do. Like, we all have to do it. We all have to decolonize away from this shit, right? Check out the prompts. You know, I've been making 20-second videos for like a month and a half. Do that work. Use those prompts to really check your fucking self. Because ultimately, we all want to experience empathy, right? We all want to, be treated the way we want, you know, we want to be treated with respect. So that means we have to treat other people with respect. And let's talk about the law of karma. Whatever energy you put out into the universe, you will receive back. And I'm not trying to victim blame here, but I'm letting you know. If you consistently sign up for the same fucking lesson over and over, and you are like, oh, it's not me, it's them. No, it is you. Because you're seeing these things before they happen, and you continually get yourself in those situations. So, you know, and that's what this liberalism is. We know the problem with these candidates, but yet people are going to still put one of them in the office, right? So take that context to your personal life. What does that look like for you? Who's abusing you? Who are you sick of fucking walking all over you and disrespecting you? And why do you stay in relationship with them without calling them out on it? What is hurting in you that's seeking that validation so fucking badly that you're allowing the mistreatment? These aren't rhetorical questions. Once you get that answer for yourself, you're going to be able to liberate yourself. Brick wall, defense mechanism guarded and hard to reach. Yeah. People don't want to hear about it. Everybody just wants to fucking point a finger. I have been doing this work, calling myself out. And that's another thing. There's a lot of power in knowing your faults before others, because nobody has any fucking dirt on you then. And I've always been that way because I grew up in such an emotionally abusive family. My sister was my main abuser. And she was so emotionally, physically abusive to me. And I tried to have a relationship with her as an adult, and I'm like, no, I'm good. If people don't want to grow, then they're not going to grow. But if you know, they're going to stay in these toxic cycles, right? Third party right there. We got to vote for a third party. We got to end this abusive relationship, right? And people are making funny jokes like, oh, the United States should, you know, just stay cold or just stay single, you know? Hot and cold. Let's talk about this hot and cold, because this is another thing that abusers like to do, is be hot and cold, right? Highs and lows, on and off again. And that like push-pull energy is really, it puts your nervous system in a fight or flight, or even fawn response, and that allows the abuse to continue. I only have a couple more minutes, but ultimately, I hope that this wasn't too over your head. I know I went back and forth to, both of these candidates are frenemies, right? They're both gonna still receive money from AIPAC. They're both gonna perpetrate white supremacy, because even though she is a black woman, she is really gung-ho on the on policing, right? A couple years ago, we wanted defunding the police, and now we're gonna put a district attorney who convicts innocent people into office. More cop cities are going to be built. The genocide and war in the Middle East is going to be continued to be funded. That's not feminism. That's not equality, right? That's what they did with Obama too. Just put a black face in the space of white supremacy. And a lot of black folks will say too, is like, not all skin folk are kinfolk, which means, you know, there's no such thing as a monolith. Same thing with white folks and brown folks and whatever. Everybody has their own shit, their own opinions, but ultimately, if we keep doing the same thing, we're gonna keep creating these cycles. These cycles and systems create people who are harmed. The misery loves company. People are going to continue to abuse and abuse and abuse. And if we can't reimagine anything else, we don't deserve to be on this planet. Our extinction is inevitable. And the powers that be are going to make sure of that, right? But ultimately, that's a human collective karma. So anyway, I'm going to run out of time. Check out some of the other videos. Recognize how you abuse others. Recognize the abuse that you receive. Recognize it in lots of different ways, from a macro to micro scale, right? We are not all too different to make a better world happen, like literally. Nature always puts different colors and species of things, and we all think it's beautiful, but then when it comes to humans, it's not. What? Bye. Have a good one.